All right, welcome back. Today I've got another good book for you. This one's another by Jonathan Haidt. It's called The Happiness Hypothesis. So this is a topic that I'm sure many of you are interested in. The subtitle here is Finding Modern Truth in Ancient Wisdom. And this book is going to take us through Jonathan Haidt's ideas of how to best be happy in life, which is something that most people, if not all people, want to do. And people spend a lot of time thinking about this. So we'll go through the book, we'll go through its contents, and in the end, hopefully I'll persuade you to give it another look and perhaps read it yourself. But this book goes through an intersection of what is essentially the crossover from ancient wisdom to modern psychological science, and it attempts to answer some of these deep questions that revolve around human happiness and what brings about meaning in one's life, what gives someone a good life, what they would consider to be a good life. At the core, it's balancing these timeless philosophical ideas with more empirical research from the modern age and seeing how they don't just differ, but how they actually align, how these ancient philosophical ideas that come from, long past wisdom align with what we're finding with our more empirical age of science when it comes to psychological studies. So one of the central metaphors of the book revolves around Jonathan Haidt's metaphor of the rider and the elephant, which is the type 1 and type 2 processing. I don't want to spend too much time on that in this video. If that's something that you're interested in or want to learn more about, I actually did a video on his book, The Righteous Mind, where we talk about that ad nauseum. So I'll link that in the description below. But it's this idea that you have a bit of a split between your subconscious desires and your conscious awareness of what you think you want, and trying to find a balance between the two and trying to align the two so that there's less of a disjointed multiplicity of yourself, I would say, as you move forward through life. So you feel more cohesive with your own self. And as well as this idea between Eastern and Western ideas, on average, let's say, in the East, there are more collectivistic cultures where the concern is based more on the group overall, group cohesion. And in the West, we're very individualistic. And there are pluses and minuses to each. And like most things, and it's something we've talked about so much on the channel, it seems like it always comes back around to this, whether we're talking about hard science or we're talking about Brandon Sanderson's fictional series, it seems like everything comes back to having a nice balance. This life, this existence we're in, it seems to all revolve around just having a nice balance of all these different things. And so having a balance between time for oneself and then having a balance between that and time with others, a concern for yourself and your own needs, and a concern for the cohesion of your family and friends, and taking care of others that you care about. So it calls for a balance between the two there. Another concern of the book is this concept of vital engagement and this blend of flow and meaning. We've talked about this when it comes to engaging in things that push you just a bit beyond your limits, not so much that it's suffocating or truly stressful to yourself, but enough to feel like you're engaged and growing in a direction that you care about. So much of life and happiness comes down to this, I would say. I find that myself and others are most happy when they're engaged in a process that's working them towards a goal that they genuinely care about. Sometimes people may think that if they had just total free time, if they were just perpetually on vacation, let's say, that's when they would be their happiest. And they may be really happy for a day or two, maybe up to 5 days or a week, but then that dissipates pretty quickly and people start to feel pretty aimless. They start to realize that they're not as happy as they thought they would be when they're not engaged in something. On the other hand, when people are overworked and they're truly distressed, they often aren't happy either. So again, comes down to a balance. If you find yourself in your life now feeling a bit aimless, feeling a bit adrift, like you feel that there's more to life, something that you're searching for, perhaps you would benefit from figuring out what you could engage in to work towards a goal that will get you closer to whatever it is that matters to you. Everyone's gonna be different in this regard, But there's a misconception oftentimes that getting completely rid of stress is the key to happiness, and that's not actually the case. In psychology, there's a couple terms for stress. So there's distress, like we just mentioned previously, and that's stress that's really quite maladaptive. It's overdone, it's starting to have negative effects on your mental and physical health. But there's also this term called eustress, and that's stress, yes, but it's positive in nature. It's just enough to push you in the right direction and to make you feel like you're engaged in something. And that's actually better for you than no stress whatsoever. So you want a good amount of this eustress in your life, and you want to feel like you're working towards something. Now, on that note, as you're working towards a goal, you'll find that your focus is more so on the goal that you're working towards. And as you make progressive steps towards that goal, your brain is going to release dopamine. You're going to feel the happiness. But the key point that I'm making here is that the focus is not on being happy. Jonathan Haidt makes the same point in this book, that you don't want your focus in life to be revolving around happiness and am I happy? Am I happy now? How happy am I? Am I happier today than I was yesterday? Will I be happier tomorrow? That actually leads to more stress than happiness. But actually focusing on a goal and working towards it, you'll find that you're happier along the way. Now, another key point that this book makes is that we derive a lot of happiness from the people that we're around, having good relationships with people. Now, I imagine that there are, that there are plenty of you out there right now that have a lot of good relationships with others, and different kinds of relationships, of course, but that this is where you derive a lot of the meaning in your life and a lot of the happiness. I also imagine that there are some of you out there that have some negative relationships, some relationships that take more from you than they give. Now, I'm actually weary to tell people when they're in a sort of, and I'm not talking about like an abusive relationship or anything over the top here. I'm talking about just a negative relationship that seems to not be, it seems to be more negative than it is positive. I'm weary to tell people to just, well, you just need to leave. I think it's an opportunity to really take a step back and assess the situation. Assess how you're contributing to the situation, how the other person is contributing to the situation. Is it really worth all the time and effort that you're putting into the relationship? And I think there are times when it's going to be worth working on and resolving any issues so that it can become a more positive relationship. And there are also going to be times as you go throughout your life where it's a good opportunity to move on, to open up more space for yourself and for other relationships. Sometimes relationships really are just more trouble than they're worth. And you want to surround yourself with people that uplift you, that help you progress towards your goals. And you want to do the same for others. Now, as we wrap up this video, I want to touch on his formula for happiness. And it goes like this. This is Jonathan Haidt's idea, that his happiness formula is H equals S plus C plus V. And here, the H represents happiness, okay, equals S, which he's referring to as the biological set point, the genetic baseline that you return to in his idea, and C equals the conditions of your life, and V is your voluntary activities. Now, to go over this relatively quickly, obviously happiness is what we're looking for, equals S, which is this biological set point. Some people tend to just be a bit more happy-go-lucky at baseline than others. Some people are just less distressed at baseline than others. And you may think, well, why is that? There are likely many reasons, like everything in psychology or in life in general. But one of the key reasons that we could point to would be to point towards trait neuroticism. And if you've heard of the big 5 personality traits, it's often abbreviated with OCEAN: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So that last one there, neuroticism, if you're higher in neuroticism, then you may find that you're just more distressed in general about things. You're more stressed out on average than someone who's lower on neuroticism. That may be hard to change. Some psychological scientists say that you can't really change that much. I tend to be a personality optimist, and I leave room for the idea that people can change to some degree albeit perhaps slowly over time. So you may be able to work on these things is really all I'm saying, but you may not have as much control over this biological set point of where you kind of tend to fall back to on average in terms of happiness. But the other two things you may be able to control more than you think, such as the conditions of your life. This is something we already talked about in the video, talking about different relationships, assessing where you're at, assessing what you're doing for work. People have different levels of ability to move in the workplace, but if you do, you may find that there may be better opportunities out there for you, or maybe there's a better opportunity within the same company that you're within, or just taking a step back and looking at your life and not getting so caught up in the momentum of everything that you just feel that you're stuck where you're at, but saying, look, I have agency over my own life. Let me assess these different areas of my life and see if there's any area that could use improvement. And maybe I could be an active agent in changing some things around so that my life is better set up for me. I understand that different people are going to have different abilities in their respective contexts to do that, but I think that people have on average a notion that they feel stuck and they feel like they can do less than they really can. I feel like people are often surprised by how much change they can actually generate in their own life if they take a step back and they make those bold moves. It takes some courage to do this, but moves towards what they actually want in life. And then V, which is voluntary activities. And this is finding time to do things that you really enjoy. And in the modern day, I think that our phones and social media steal a lot of this time from us. I think that people get stuck on going down a rabbit hole on whatever app it is. I'm not going to call any out in specific, but they feel like they don't have much free time. And I think that if you check your phone and check how much time you spend on social media, that you may find you have more free time than you realize. And if you replace that free time, those activities, with things that really give back to you, really recharge your batteries, so to speak, you may find that that brings a lot more happiness back into your life. And to tie it back in with social engagement, you may find that spending some of that free time with others and developing relationships and just really having some quality time with family and friends, that may bring the most happiness into your life. So at the end of the day, when you read this book, you get a lot of fodder to work with to develop a life for yourself that brings you the most happiness. You're not going to find some secret hidden key that works for everyone, that if you just do these 3 steps, then you'll be the happiest you've ever been. It's not going to work like that, and I think that you knew that all along, but it is going to give you a lot of interesting ideas to work with so that you can set up your life in a personal way that brings you the most amount of happiness. All right, so that's the happiness hypothesis from Jonathan Haidt. If you have any questions about this book or anything on the topic, please leave those below. And like this video if you like these videos where we go over books that tie into psychological concepts. I really enjoy talking about them with you. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.